Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my Father, there on that sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Many of you will be familiar with these words from your English curriculum. They were written by Dylan Thomas, a Welsh poet, so brilliant that the best writer of song lyrics ever, Bob Zimmerman, better known as Bob Dylan, took his name for himself. It is in a style called a villanelle, where lines from the first stanza are repeated over and over again, inducing a kind of claustrophobia and paranoia. And what is it about? Death. That's what I'm here to talk about today. The struggle between life and death, and poetry, and of course football. Because when Dylan Thomas tells his father, do not go gentle into that good night, night means death, and paradoxically it is not a good night at all. He has just recycled that common word to surprises, as if death for the old man is seductive, a release, better than the pain of living. And the poet cries out into the blackness, don't do it, don't let go, get angry, rage against the dying of the light, where light is life, and it is worth fighting for, never surrendering, like Gandalf shouting, fight, fight to the forces of good in the final battle of the Lord of the Rings, or Churchill in his great speeches of 1940, fight them on the beaches, fight them in the streets, never surrender. And we will not most likely ever be called upon to make that kind of sacrifice for a noble cause. But fighting off the spectre of death is one battle that we will all inevitably face. The message is that summed up in the famous Latin tag Carpe Diem, where the day to be seized is life itself, every passing moment of it. The phrase was first used by the Roman poet Horace, who wrote, Carpe diem quam minimum credula postero. Seize the day and put as little trust as you can in tomorrow. It's inspired poets in particular ever since. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may, wrote Robert Herrick in his 1648 poem, To the Virgins to make much of time. Old time is still a-flying, and this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. Then be not coy, but use your time, and while ye may go marry, for having lost but once your prime, you may forever tarry. As with lots of poets down the years, he's talking about sex, and specifically telling girls not to hold back, but to jump into bed. If we had world enough and time, this coyness, lady, were no crime, wrote Andrew Marvell. Coyness, again, means not jumping into bed. Sex connotes life and is worth fighting for, because death is waiting to wither the metaphorical blooms on the stem. So poetry has always set itself up to live in the moment as a noble last stand against the forces of death and night. And what I really want to talk to you about today, apart from football, is an old Tonbridgian by the name of Jaya Ravindran, Parkside, 1983 to 1988. A doctor by trade, a consultant rheumatologist at Coventry Hospital, who in 2014 was diagnosed with a rare type of cancer of the blood. He wrote, I still remember the day I was diagnosed in October 2014. We were celebrating the completion of a house sale. Although as a doctor I was aware that lymphoma was a severe diagnosis, the shock was still great. I immediately catastrophized about the future, my days numbered by statistics. Prior to this, I'd been losing weight, which I'd attributed to eating less cake and chocolate. I have a very sweet tooth. I had also felt overwhelming fatigue, but who isn't tired? More and more people commented on my weight loss. So one night, I examined myself for lumps and bumps and found an enlarged lymph gland at the base of my neck. This sent a shiver through my psyche, as I knew enlarged glands in this part of the body were associated with a serious diagnosis. The next morning, I happened to be doing a clinic opposite a colleague who was a head and neck surgeon. He confirmed my finding, and I subsequently had a CT scan of my chest. I remember looking as we scrolled through the images, and a mass in the chest appeared. I wondered whether I was looking at my own funeral. I went on to have a lymph node biopsy, which confirmed acute T-cell lymphoblastic lymphoma, an uncommon type of blood cancer. Jaya's response to this life-threatening trauma was interesting. He wrote poetry. He celebrated life and battled death through writing poems, which he collected together in a book titled Hope, which you can buy, and the proceeds of which go towards a charity also set up by Jaya called Project Hope. It supports the blood cancer research charity Bloodwise and the bone marrow transplant charity, the Anthony Nolan Trust, both of which do incredible work. His aim is also to raise awareness of the National Bone Marrow Register, which few people realize requires little more than a mouth swab to join, particularly among ethnic groups where potential donors are underrepresented. I'll email out the details later in case it's a cause you're interested in supporting. I'm going to read you some of Jaya's poetry. He wanted to be here today to read them himself, but he's not well enough. Game of cards. Genetic hand of cards dealt, random DNA sequences built and split, an error unseen. Who was on duty? A distracted sentry had let the enemy in. An ode to a node. When I found you, cheeky, unrepentant, bold, firm in that ditch of despair, I knew TB, or as it turned out, not TB. The answer, like a polished axe, smashed through splintering hope. Like a jagged mirror, cracked my reflection ghostly. I felt my hair today, gone tomorrow. Words echoed, if we don't cure you, you will die. 50-50. Phone a friend. Computer took away the wrong answers. I'm not ready for the end. And on a different note, Lords. Oh, the joy to behold and savor the old pavilion and Father Time. The members hunched, bacon and egg jackets, boaters and hats, programs clutched for the match, picnic hampers, champagne corks on the outfield. We gaze at the hallowed turf, green snooker bays. The bowler unwinds a shiny duke, the balletic placement through the covers. Applause, polite and considered. The mound stand frames a sideways view of Captain Cook and his crew. Hospitality's cup overflows, Pimm's, wine, frothy beer. Truly, Jerusalem was builded here. Good poetry is always a statement of life, the fight to convey meaning to any passing moment you might choose. To borrow a tagline from somewhere else, choose life, choose hope, choose Jaya Ravindran's hope. Seize the day ahead of the night, donate bone marrow, and write poetry about what it felt like to do it. I promised you football. What does football teach us about the Carpe Diem philosophy? Some of you will know that I'm a Liverpool fan and have been since 1982 or so. Football, like life, is arbitrary and cruel. Mohamed Salah was planning to seize the day until he had a little dance with Sergio Ramos. So all he could do yesterday was sit on the bench and watch Uruguay fight to seize their day. I remember before Euro 2016, Daniel Sturridge said, "This is our time." And when England came from behind to beat Wales in the group stage and Sturridge scored the winner, it really did look like it was his time. But who remembers that when Wales went all the way to the semi-final and England went out to Iceland? The most exciting goal I ever saw scored in the World Cup was Michael Owen's against Argentina in 1998, because it was a kind of playground football goal we all want to score. And no one on the Argentina team knew who he was, so they let him do it. He seized the day, but so did David Beckham that same evening. got sent off, so England went home yet again. So seizing the day is not so much about deciding in advance you're going to do something special, because the arbitrariness of life will crown you king one day, only to subjugate you the next. It's about raging against the mundane, the mediocre, being truly alive in the moment. Dylan Thomas coined the greatest of all metaphors for it. He said of life, "Time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea." Let's hope the England team can sing like the sea. Thank you.